Hey everyone, welcome back to the Commercial Real Estate Library Podcast. I'm Dayma and You know my co-host Garret McGilvery, and joining us today is the CEO of Canada Lands Company, Stéphan Déry.
Thank you.
That was good?
Yeah, sounds good. Pleasure joining you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. A very, very quick intro. So we have the distinct honor of hosting a visionary leader. This is gonna be good. At the helm of one of Canada's most influential crown corporations, appointed as the president and CEO of Canada Lands Company in 2023, Stéphan brings over 3 decades of public service experience to the pivotal role. Before leading the CLC, he served as the Assistant Deputy Minister of Real Estate Services at Public Services and Procurement Canada, overseeing a vast portfolio of federal properties and a team of over 4,000 employees. Does that sound right?
Yeah, sounds exactly right.
Okay.
75 million square feet of portfolio and 4,000 employees.
Holy mackerel.
Bridge and dams and all kinds of other interesting things that are sometimes need a lot of attention and a lot of repairs and maintenance.
My goodness. Yeah. I thought Rob Coomer was a big deal, and then you go government.
Portfolio.
Yeah, exactly. I think a great place to start would be, can you share for our audience who might not be familiar, what is Canada Lands Company? What do you guys do? Give us a little bit of the scale and the scope.
Absolutely. Pleasure doing that. And again, thank you for welcoming me here. Canada Lands Company is a crown corporation. So we have one shareholder, and this is the government of Canada. But we're an arm's length crown corporation. So the government doesn't dictate to us day to day what we should do, how we should do it. Once a year, they approve our corporate plan. They send us a letter of expectation. So we have a letter of expectation from the minister. We align our corporate plan on this, and then we move forward with our plan. So we are, I would say, the real estate development arm of the government of Canada. So the government of Canada is probably one of the largest landowner and property owner, 32,000 property across the country. You think about national defense, you think about Transport Canada, you think about the Pickering Airport that was just announced yesterday that it's going to become a park. So the federal government has tons of land and buildings. So when they don't need a building anymore and it's surplus to their need, CLC, if it's a strategic property, CLC will buy it from them. Meaning a strategic property is something that we believe we're going to add value to it. We're going to bring value into the property, just not a single house, but a parcel of land. And we'll buy it from the federal government. We'll redevelop it, do the zoning. A lot of time it's brownfield. So we'll decontaminate the property, and we'll reintroduce it into the community to make sometime it's large property like Downsview Park, to make really a new community where people want to thrive, want to live, want to work in.
Interesting. Is there typically an exit strategy for you guys, or you develop it and then you own it, you lease it up or occupy it? What typically happens at the end?
I would say we're shifting from a real estate perspective. I haven't talked about our other division, which is attraction. So we own the CN Tower here in Toronto.
Yes.
I'll just make that parenthesis. We own the Downsview Park, 300-acre park in the middle of the GTA. We own the Old Port of Montreal. You remember the big wheel that in the Old Port, and the Science Center. So we do have 4 attractions that we maintain, and we attract probably all of them together about 10 million people a year. So that's another portion of our business. But to come back on the real estate, we normally in the past, we used to, rezone, decontaminate the land, rezone, and then parcel it out, build the infrastructure, sewer, roads, park, lighting on the street. And then we sold parcel by parcel to a home builder, developer, building real estate developer, and they would build homes, or depending where it is and depending on the zoning, they can build a high-rise tower. at this point in time, with the housing crisis and all that, we're looking at all other kind of option. Now we're holding on the long term those 4 attractions. We're holding other building in Western Canada on the long term. Longer term, 20, 25 years, 30 years. We're leasing them. We're looking at leasing land. We're looking at all kinds of how can we stimulate the construction on federal land.
Interesting. And so you guys are typically looking from the angle of attraction or development, but it's not, you still have to have a business case for the development, right? So like when I look out at the Portlands just over there, that's not you guys, unless there's a business case for the federal government to kind of get involved and do that, build it out.
Yeah, most of the time it would be like, since we're an arm's length, we're have a little bit more flexibility than the federal government.
Right.
So normally we would take surplus property that are already owned by the federal government.
Right.
And then we will build them out or redevelop them and make sure that they become community with, and we have in our corporate plan, we have, affordable housing. We have some I wouldn't say we give ourselves some obligation because we want to get the project has to be financially viable, right? Because we're not funded by the federal government. We're self-financing. So it has to be financially viable, but we have also social objective. We want 20% minimum affordable housing. We want, as much as possible, ecologically friendly. We try to build 15 minutes community where people can walk, work and play.
Right.
And, really some of our property development have won award after 10 years of being developed because they're still used as it was intended 10, 12 years ago.
So does that mean that like every development still has to pencil, like as if you were a Tridel or something? Like yes, of course, with social objectives, you can get better financing, but it still has to make sense in that respect. Like it's not just all grants and stuff like that.
There's got to be profit.
Yeah. Okay.
It has to make sense. It has to pencil. So the pro forma has to work the same way they work in the private sector.
Right.
Because don't forget, we're buying the property. That may change. That's in the work. There's budget. I'll talk a little bit about that. But budget 2024 gave us more other authority, but they have to. We're buying it at market value. A lot of time, it's brownfield. So we had to, an example in Montreal, Wellington Basin is $80 million of decontamination to do. So, yes, we're going to put 3,500, if I got that right, 3,500 homes there. We're going to build a beach. But there's still $80 million of decontamination to do on these lands. So there's a major risk associated with buying that property at market value from the Fed.
Mostly and the market would probably not be too excited about it. So like if they tried to sell it in the open market, most people would say, well, you got to clean this up. How are we going to finance it? It would probably sell for maybe even less than you guys might buy it. Or at least there's an opportunity. It's not like it's a property that requires a lot of work.
Absolutely.
One quick point, and then we'll go to Garret. When I started because I work at Colliers, I lead a multifamily team here. But I think when I first got into the business, I was much more of a sicko. I thought I could sell the entire world. And so I think in my first month, I was looking up the CN Tower, and I was like, I'm going to call this owner. And then I was disappointed to see that it was
not for sale.
Company. Yeah.
Wasn't for sale.
Yeah. Right? Not yet. So,
I guess, how do you guys differentiate from, like, there's a bunch of other federal and or municipal type of organizations that have land banks that try to sell stuff to developers, like the Canada Public Land Bank, CMHC, Federal Land Initiative, stuff like that.
So I would say we're working hand in hands with, we don't have a preferential treatment, but we're working hand in hands with CMHC, the Federal Land Initiative, as an example. In budget 2024, we have a pilot project of 5 property across the country, one here in Toronto, in Arbo, in Downsview, one in Montreal, and other elsewhere in the country, at western of here. And those will be leased to a nominal value. financed through the Federal Land Initiative. We will be leasing them for 99 years or a term that will be negotiated at nominal value to potential developers so they can, build. And one of the condition of that is working with CMHC. The more social benefit you'll get, the less you'll pay for the land and the less rent you'll have. So that's some of the program. And the minimum is 30% affordable housing.
Yeah.
So we'll have one here in Arbo, in Downsview. And there was 5 of them. 2 of them are moving to the final stage. 2 of those property were requests for information and interest. But they will be at some point becoming land for lease, and then there'll be development. From the land bank, and the land bank, you mentioned the Federal Land Bank, which was created in August 2024 by the present government. We are partner in the land bank. It's basically a geospatial tool where people will come and look for property. So the federal government looks at property like they have and they won't need in the future. Some of them are 2029, some of them are 2025, some of them are already for disposal, and they take all these property and load them into that geospatial tool. And then people can look, a developer can look. We load our property also in there, the one that are ready to go to market. And it's to give a view and an insight to developer that here's the property that are coming. It's the first time it's been done. Was never done before. And it also put a little bit of pressure on the government to look at all their asset and say, which one do we need? Out of those 32,000 property, which one do we really need? Could we do away with this property, with this building, as the federal government is reducing their portfolio because of telework and all this? That's going to give an opportunity, I believe, to have more property available from the federal government to build homes to help reduce the pressure of the housing crisis in Canada.
Mm-hmm. So you started in 2023. Obviously, you're aware of the company's history and everything. What are the biggest changes you've seen over the last couple years as it relates to Canada Lands Company? And then what are the biggest upcoming trends that you're seeing, whether it's with this government or a potential next?
I think in the last 2 years, since not because I've been there, but the housing crisis has came into play right after the pandemic, really. Yeah. And I joined Canada Land. There was a housing crisis before, but it really made the news. April, May, June, July, 2023, right? And that's where the change. The federal government wanting to leverage Canada Land more. In budget 2024, the government of Canada as giving us an expanded mandate, I would say, allows us to buy property from the federal government at below market value so that we can pass the saving to the developer to increase the number of affordable housing, make it more viable. Pro forma, you were talking about, It has to pencil out. It's hard, right? The pandemic has raised the cost of everything because low interest rate, people were just buying bigger home and all this, and all of a sudden the pandemic ended, and then the interest rate just skyrocketed. And a lot of people had never seen 5-6% on a mortgage, right, for their entire life. I remember, and I won't show that will show my age, but I paid 12% at one point, and I thought that was a lot compared to 1.52%. So.
Well, when the mortgage was $70,000.
Hey?
When the mortgage was only $70,000.
Yes, absolutely. Maybe a little bit less than that.
Yeah.
So, and today it's $1 million dollar mortgage, right? So when you think about that.
Yeah, per condo.
Yeah, absolutely. When you think about that, you're seeing that, like the pressure is, okay, how can we convert federal land, federal buildings, federal land faster into homes for Canadian? And the federal government knows they won't solve the housing crisis with their land, obviously, because it's way bigger than that. And CMHC says we need about 5.8 million homes by 2031 in order to bring back the affordability. The federal government give themselves a target of 250 homes by 2031, and they want the expanded mandate and leveraging CLC to be one of these actors and really act as the main real estate developer for the government of Canada. So they've given us the authority to buy property at below market so we can pass on those savings. Sometime, like I'm thinking about a property in Montreal, we've paid $16.5 million for it, right? At Côte de Liesse in Montreal, the old National Film Board, that $16 million, we couldn't, pass those savings onto either a non-for-profit
Right.
to really help create more affordable housing. We don't want to create all affordable housing. We are looking for mixed use property, right? Mixed use commercial, but also at market condominium, at market apartment, and also affordable housing.
So just to clarify, how would that work? So you guys get a slight discount to value, and then you're taking it through the entitlement process and then giving it off to a developer with the approvals in place to necessitating like 30% affordable or something to that effect. And then like, how do you then decide the price to pass on to those guys? Or is it the end consumer that you're passing on to at kind of a lower?
We would pass
I mean?
I know what you mean. In this case, we would pass it to the builder.
Got it.
At a reduced price with a guarantee of 20, 25, 30, 40% affordable housing. Yeah. So, or we could also pass it on to non-for-profit.
Right.
And work with a non-for-profit to build portion of the site. There's some of the building could be converted, but you're really looking, okay, what the outcome you want to achieve. And obviously, as you increase the amount of affordable housing, on the other hand, you have to decrease the price of the land because for the math to work. Right. So that's really what we will do. If that goes ahead and department sells us land for below market value, then we'll be able to take like an example that 16 million, reduce the price of the land so that the developer can build more than 10% or 15% affordable housing. We may increase it to 30. We have all the calculation on how much 5% of affordable housing, how much you have to discount the land to do that, right? And to bring it down to close to as much as free land or, long-term nominal value lease. Other authority that are given to us is really to start working on development when the building is still full. And normally in the process of the government and the disposal process takes a fair amount of time. Used to be 9 years to dispose of a federal building. Now we're trying to working with the government to accelerate that.
Oh my God.
How does it take 9 years?
And they have a lot of obligation. I could say that to you while I was sitting on the other side. I was responsible for the disposal when I was working for Public Service and Procurement Canada. So we're working hard to accelerate that. But really, when they know that they're going to vacate a building in 2029, why I don't start the planning now, start rezoning, start everything. So the day they walk out, I have my construction permit. I can go ahead and start building, start converting or building, depending what the building is or what the property is. This way, we're saving time. We're not wasting any time because sometimes, and we have a few property that have been vacated 5 years ago. And we're starting demolition today because we went through, and the process, city process to get approval and all that. So it's not necessarily a linear process and it's not at the speed of light.
So you guys don't get an advantage like time-wise or approvals-wise because that is nuts. 5 years. I mean, it's not nuts. It's like exactly what happens to everybody else. But like you would think that you could get a little edge. There's a crisis.
Yeah, we don't like we have fantastic relationship with municipality, either Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa, but we don't have here's the normal process. Here's Canada Land's coming. Oh, they'll just go around the process and we'll get building. No, I was looking at all of our project lately, and it normally from the time we buy it to the time we start something takes about 4 or 5 years. From the time we buy it from the federal government to the time we're either right now we're demolishing some building and some of the property, which have historical, we have to keep some, we have to demolish them. It takes 4 years. So going through the public consultation, going to the approval process, and in some places, which I won't name, it's 7 years. But it's from the time we bought it to the time we're starting ready to put infrastructure in the roads, ready to build roads, ready to put parks, lighting, 7 years in some instance. So, I mean, that's and I know all developers are facing the same thing. You know, I was talking to, and I won't name the company or anybody.
You have a child, and you're like, by the time you get to grade 2, we might be able to put a shovel in the ground.
Yeah. You know, some people and a couple of people I met, because I'm looking also, we're looking to expand. We're looking to different approach to our business. You know, we've been 30 years in business. We have a lot of experience, but we've been in a model that, you know, we get the property, we develop them, we rezone them, we put the infrastructure, lighting, park, and all that, and then we sell parcel of land. So we're looking at other model. Could we do joint venture with the private sector where we can partner with them? And talking to multiple investor, and they were telling me, one gentleman in particular told me, he said, you know, if I buy property in Texas, in 30 months, I end the key to the tenant.
Yeah.
I bought a parcel of land 30 months ago, and I'm ending the key to the tenant. In Canada, where am I in 30 months? Nowhere. Really. That's 3 years, right? Roughly 2.5 years. So 30 months, you got nothing to show for. So when you're looking for a return on your investment, there's no guarantee unless you have, and that's some of the developer I've met were telling us, you know, we don't want your dirty land. We don't want your unzoned land. What we're looking for, because they're looking for a return on their investment, the uncertainty of city approval, the uncertainty and the contamination, you do that. We don't want to play with that because that's your money that's at risk.
Right.
It's your time. It's all of that you're at risk. We'll take the land when it's zoned, when it's clean, and we'll build on it. Then we can know that we have a return. We can have a fairly good schedule. Yes, there's delay in construction and all that material shortage, but we can at least have a schedule. We don't. Right now, with the zoning, with the contamination and all
that is, I suppose, the contamination is part of it that makes your timeline even longer than typical. Why don't we talk about a specific example? Let's talk about this Downsview airport site. And what are the plans there? I see here it's I'm hoping this is accurate, but 8,000 residential units with 20% designated as affordable. What do you envision for that site? It's a huge site. And where are we at in the process?
So that's one of our, you know, and with us and our neighbor, Nordcrest, this is one of the largest real estate development in North America.
Yes. Like over
45,000 doors, homes, or however, total.
Oh, I was totally wrong. Okay. That's
45,000. Yeah. 22 of them is Canada Land. So
wow.
Canada Land owns approximately 500 and I don't have the number in hectares, so I'll talk in acres, if that's okay with you. 500 acres. 300 of that is the urban park. So that won't change. That will stay a park forever. But around that, there's 200 acres that we own that we're planning to develop, right? Right now, there'll be 4. There's one, Stanley Green's already done. But in the future, there'll be 4 development. One being Arbo. I talked a little bit about Arbo, where it's our first development, where we're going to build approximately 4,000 doors, homes, room for seniors. There's, you know, like really a community center. We're working with the city to have a community center built.
Rental? Rental?
There'll be rental. There'll be a condo. There'll be both. And hopefully a senior's home as part of that. That's 4,000. And then we have Downsview West, which is right beside the Downsview station, GO and TTC station. And that's also, and part of Downsview West is our depot, which is roughly a million square feet building that we're going to repurpose. We're going to cut the plans have been approved by the city. Are we going to cut a road through it and really envision a walkable development, completely walkable with a lot of park, with Downsview Park, but also within that, a lot of park, but close to, in those two development, 12,000 homes, Arbo and Downsview West. And then we have Downsview East. And those are future development that we will be undertaking at a later date. But approval with the city, we have approval for Arbo to move forward. Our secondary plan has been approved in October, November 2024 for Downsview West, ID8, we call it. It's all of Downsview with our neighbor Nordcrest. That's been approved. So, and we've did our submission to the city in November for the next phase of Downsview West. So we're looking for probably 40 to 50 story right by the GO station.
Right.
And the transit. So that'll be a walkable neighborhood. It'll be beautiful. It's
exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. I mean, it for me, I mean, looking at this land that's been, sitting idling, we don't want to take, as I said, all of the green space away, 300 acres of park, animated park right beside your home, right? So imagine the nice life that you can have in a neighborhood like this. We can walk to the park, you can bring your kid to the park.
Right.
It's a fantastic place.
Is this financed through like traditional CMHC, apartment loan and construction program? Like how do you guys do it?
So right now we are financing it ourselves, right? So we're self-financing. So
my goodness.
Lots of
some
cash.
of our profit go back to government in the form of dividend.
Yeah.
We've been in business since 1995, so 30 years this year.
Yeah.
Some of our profit are reinvested into our development. So since 2015, we invested about over 800 million in our development and given back to the government of Canada 1.3 billion.
All cash?
All cash.
Holy smokes.
And letter of credit and all these kind of things.
Good covenant.
Eh?
Good covenant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's but we're also looking, since we want to accelerate our development, like Downsview West as an example, we would like to accelerate that because we feel that with our current portfolio that we have across the country, about 1,000 acre under development, we think we're going to be able to deliver about 49,000 homes.
Wow.
Doors, homes to Canadian by 2031. So if we could get, and we're working with the federal government, the federal land bank, if we can get more land, more property, we want to increase that to help achieve that goal of 250,000.
On that note, and I guess a lot of this is brownfield or, like where are the biggest, most interesting sites that you guys feel are kind of ripe for, an opportunity for Canada Lands?
Well, there's multiple of them. You could see all of them on the land bank, except the one that are home and our single home or things like that. We also in budget 2024 got the authority to convert buildings into residential. We have the authority to work on, there's a few property we're working on. Tunney's Pasture, 121 acre in the middle of Ottawa. As an example, there's a lot of building on it, but it was just approved. The new plan was just approved by the NCC, National Capital Commission, to really make it a lot more housing than, and that's probably, don't quote me on this, but 9,000 residents.
Wow.
To be built. And that's right along the transit, the LRT in Ottawa. That's a perfect place to develop and to have, again, a walkable community. These are some of the sites we're working on. These are in partnership with PSPC because they're still building, are still occupied and things like that. So we'll have a real mix of office and
residential.
Residential.
Have you implemented some of these conversions? Like, have you guys? We see it in Edmonton and Calgary a little bit, right? Because they're trying to reduce their office by 6.5 million square feet or something like this. And there's incentives and all that stuff. But have you seen that have you done it in Edmonton, Calgary, or have you seen it outside of those markets?
We haven't done it. to be honest, Canada
Okay.
Lands yet. That's
Okay.
a new authority we're getting in budget 2024. But we've seen it done in Ottawa as an example. I know at least of 2 buildings that have been converted into residential, and there's another one underway. They were not federal building; they were private buildings.
Okay.
So it's feasible.
Yeah.
Depending on the shape of the building. Some of these large government building, 25,000 square feet per floor. Forget it. I mean, in my head, I can't see how you could put condos in there unless you get 6-bedroom condo and none of them with windows and that kind of thing.
Slivers.
Yeah. Or you have, 80 feet this way and then you have a window, right?
Yeah.
But there's still a lot, depending on the way the building was built, there's still a lot of them that could be feasible to convert, right?
Yeah. Somebody should just rebrand like bowling alley condos. They should just make those cool. If you could attach something cool, get a couple TikTokers in there, I think maybe you could convince the general population that it's workable.
Yeah.
And you have full visibility right down the hall,
Do you plan on doing any of these like yourselves or similar style what you've done previously where you're just going to entitle it and then sell it off with
I think with the right partner, we're open to any model. And that's what I've been doing in the last year is talking to investor, because, I said we're financing our own development, but if we want to accelerate, if we want to go faster, build more homes now, I mean, at some point you need a significant amount of cash to, like infrastructure, everything that you need to be putting and preparing those parcels to be sold. We're open to all kind of partnership with the private sector. And I would see, and we've built building in the past. I was looking at our newsletter yesterday in 401 Burrard. It's an office building that we built ourselves as project manager. Vancouver. And, could we do that again? Absolutely. So we're looking at how can we deliver home faster on federal land? And really, we're open to any combination of leasing land, partnering, putting the land and let's say a building as a joint venture and bringing that share to and see how we can get, because conversion of building is not the panacea of building housing, right? It's not the easiest thing in the world.
No.
And there's a fair amount of risk. There's a fair amount of expenditure also. And the profit margin are not that big. And somebody may think, but unless the building is extremely perfectly shaped and you could do a lot of things with it, usually there's a lot of unknown also in the, it's an old construction, demolishing, taking out off everything there's a lot of unknown. There's a lot of risk associated with that too. So we're ready to partner with the private sector in order to deliver those.
Do you looking at if you guys are delivering, I think you said 49,000 homes by 2031 is the goal. And then we still need so much more building. What suggestions would you have to the federal or provincial or municipal governments to really expedite this process in terms of whatever it might be, incentives, difference in policy? How do you think about that?
I'm thinking there's some of the programs that are in place right now that are helping, basically the condominium market in Canada has softened a lot. You see a lot more.
It's a nice way to put it.
Yeah. Well, some people say it's dead, but you see, because of CMHC's program, low financing, you see a lot of rental being built, right? So what kind of program do we need on both sides? Vancouver, the provincial government has started an attainable housing program. And one of our projects where we have a GV 50-50 ownership with the MST Nation, the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nation, and where the province will take 40% of the mortgage.
Interesting.
And the buyer, and it's for, fireman, firefighter, all of this is really a frontline worker. They'll pay 60% of the cost. So that's a model. Is it scalable across the country? That remains to be seen. But that's a model that is being tested. Other model, rental. But really, if we want to accelerate that, there's light at the end of the tunnel. See, there's been more started the construction in the last quarter. So we're starting to see that. But think about, I'll come back to my Texas property at 30 months to end the key to the tenant, from the purchase to ending the key. So the construction's been done, the zoning's been done, all of this has been done in 30 months. I mean, we have a lessons to learn here.
Oh, totally.
How could we do that? How can we accelerate? Is that because we don't have enough people working on planning in those large cities and even some of the smaller ones?
I feel like they need to be more efficient.
Could they be more efficient? Maybe we should take an example of south of the border. I'm not saying everything's perfect in the United States. We'll see next week if we end up with tariffs, but and that could hurt the construction industry again, and by the time
I think bonds will drop on that news if that happens, but
So I think there's a lot of effort needs to be done by the three level of government in order to push and to deliver housing. Take the barrier out of the way of developer. Developer are not only people that, I was talking to one colleague in Atlantic, people in this housing crisis, the developer have been looked at as the bad people, really, right? Oh, they make tons of money, but they put a lot of money on the line. And sometime for a small return, when you're starting building condominium or think about it, you sold 70% of your condominium in 2020, right in the pandemic, or 2021.
You deserve to make some money.
Well, now the cost of material has gone up by 40% since then. The cost of labor approximately by 40%. The development charge that went up also by 40% during that period. Now, what are you going to do? You sell 70% of those condo at this price. You would need to sell the other one double to make the difference.
Yeah.
And you got to build that. A lot of
guys are going broke, actually.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think the developer are looked at the bad people in all of this. But I think if we want the construction to start again, and if we want to supply those 5 million homes, we're going to have to, release a little bit of pressure. Development charge, as an example.
Yes.
They're fairly high in most city. Development charge, speed of approval. So you have a guaranteed return at some point because while you're building 5, 6, 7% interest on your money that you're paying out because you borrowed.
Yeah.
I mean, we all have to put our hands in this wheel and start making it turning faster.
Totally. It's also important for maybe some of our audiences in Toronto, or a good percentage of them, and they see the challenges, all of this, 7 to 9 year timeline. That sounds like what they see. Of course, that's like Toronto, Vancouver, and then other provinces are a little bit faster. The housing crisis is less pronounced. When you say development is happening because bonds are ticking down, I honestly don't see it. I see almost nobody putting shovels in the ground, but that's Toronto. And then when you stretch outside and you guys are at a national scale, it's like, oh, it can work.
It is happening. There is still provinces, and I don't want to single out Alberta, but development is happening.
Oh, totally.
It is Calgary. We have project in Calgary. We have project in Edmonton. These are booming.
Imagine if the oil taps turn on.
Exactly.
Nuts.
It's and the approval process is fairly quick.
Yeah.
And I won't say I haven't calculated how many years it is, but it's extremely quick. If you compare to other city across the country, is a lot faster.
Yeah.
So that helps us to develop. But could we take example from the city and transfer that east and west?
No rent control. Yeah. Yes.
There's all kinds of.
I do agree. There's a lot to learn that we could improve. The one question I had for you, out of several, so we talk about attractions. Is there anything attraction-wise that you guys are thinking? Are you guys involved in the old, what is that, Ontario Place? Are we going to see a monster casino there or something? Let's create the seventh wonder of the world. What are we thinking?
We're not involved in Ontario Place.
Okay.
Let's get
you in there.
Hey?
Let's get you in there.
No, maybe. We're always looking, again, to the federal government to see if there's more attraction we could acquire from the federal government. That's always on the. We're always on the go on that and looking out. Is there potential for acquiring? But it has to make sense. Again, the math has to work, right? Some of these attraction have been subsidized by government. When they come over to us, there's no more subsidy.
Right.
So we have to make them work financially. And that's where we are, right? I mean, thinking and looking at how can we drive, like here in Toronto, the CN Tower, the aquarium. We don't own the aquarium. We own the land underneath the aquarium, but that's an attraction pole, right? So what else could we do with those parcel of land? We still have a little bit of land left. What else could we do there?
Right.
Same in Montreal with the old port. How rethinking the vision for the old port, making it an entertainment district in Montreal we got about 7 million people going there every year. That's a lot of people that you can entertain and have interesting things for them. Yeah. And always looking out to other attraction we could acquire. But I won't say more on that. I can't.
Okay. Reels will get deleted from the footage.
I was just going to say, you guys are obviously looking at very dense projects, but have you been looking at any projects where it's like post World War II type of time when CMHC was just throwing old war homes down like every 6 seconds, basically? But any of those types of developments on fringe markets anywhere?
We're assessing, we're part of the working, although we're a Crown Corporation, we're working with Public Services and Procurement Canada, and the Minister of Public Services and Procurement, Minister Duclos, is also the minister responsible for Canada Land. We're looking at the entire portfolio of property from the federal government and which one would be suitable for housing. So this assessment, there's 32,000 of them. So this assessment is going on, and smaller market, definitely when there's a parcel of land, we, as an example, in Ottawa, Water Ridge is we call it Water Ridge Village, is the old Rockcliffe Army base in Ottawa. You won't see only skyscraper in Ottawa. Like I think the highest building is 15, 20 story we're going to build. It's 9 phases, but we have row house, we have single family home, we have semi-detached. So, which is a little bit outside of downtown Ottawa, but the city is expanding. So we're looking at all these possibilities. Everywhere there's a parcel of land that could be converted into housing, we're looking at it. Major center, but also rural, smaller city. We're working with Canada Post. That's also an authority that we had in budget 2024. Normally, we were only working with federal government, federal department. Now we have the authority to work with all Crown Corporation and acquire property from them. So we're also looking at Canada Post. We're looking at all Crown Corporation. Is there...
Who else are there? Name a few more.
Oh, there's... CMHC is a Crown Corporation. As an example, they own a fair amount of property. I talked about Canada Post. There's Defense Construction. There's a fair amount of. There's about 100 Crown Corporation. Not all of them are custodian,
right? But
a fair amount of them own property across the country. Canada Post being the largest one, and the one we're working with right now. But it will be open to all of them to work with us if they so desire. And we can look at their property and see if we can acquire them or if we can redevelop them, really.
One thing just to call attention to, like, how can the private sector, we have a lot of private sector folks in the audience, how can the private sector work with you guys? Like, where are the big opportunities? Who should they be reaching out to? How do you guys have more collaboration?
Well, definitely all of our projects are announced either on Mercs or on the land bank. You can see the property that we have that will be ready to, we go to market regularly. They can reach out through clc.ca, and they can reach out to our communication group of our vice president of corporate affair, not corporate affair, but public relation. And they'll direct them to the right person, depending where they are across the country and where they have an interest. to work with us because as you mentioned, we're a Canadian company, so we have development from Newfoundland to Vancouver. So we're open for business and looking to partner with the private sector.
Awesome. And this is my last question, but what is the thing that you're most excited for in 2025?
Seeing that number I mentioned, 49,000 homes being built on our existing property, seeing that number double, with new property being added. That's my goal. How can we, bring that to 150,000 home or 200,000 home really in the next decade? So we help with federal land, we accelerate development, and we build more home for Canadians.
Good.
Awesome.
Good. Better lives for Canadians.
Yeah, exactly.
I like this. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Stéphan. It was an honor.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure
Thank you, Stéphan.
being here. Thank you very much.